In this recording, we want to talk about subtraction. And basically what's going to happen is when we see a minus sign, we want to think about it like it is a negative number, not like it is a subtraction problem. So I am going to take negative 87. That's not hard to imagine because there's no number in front of it. And then plus 16. And then I'm going to say plus negative 22. And then plus 61. So that I'm thinking about, maybe I'll put parentheses around the negative 87. So I'm thinking about this as just an addition problem, but I'm adding some numbers that are positive and some numbers that are negative. Okay. Now, what do we do practically once we've made that decision? Well, we can go a couple of ways. We could just move left to right and follow the rules, right? The rule is that if the signs are the same, you add, and if they're different, you subtract, and you keep the sign of the bigger number. So negative 87 plus 16, well, the signs are different, so we subtract, and that's, what is that, 71, and the bigger number, the further number away from 0 is negative, and so it's negative 71 plus negative 22 plus 61. So I'm just doing one at a time. And the next two, negative 71 plus negative 22, the signs are the same, so we add them together. 71 plus 22 is 93, and they're both negative, so the answer is negative. Right, the bigger one is negative, but they're both negative. Okay, plus 61, and once again, moving left to right, negative 93 plus 61. The signs are different this time, so we subtract, and we get 32. The bigger, or the number furthest away from 0 is also negative here, and so the answer is negative 32. Now, maybe a better way to do this would be, or maybe an easier way would be to use the commutative and associative properties to rewrite this problem so that it's negative 87 plus negative 22 plus 16 plus 61, and then we do the ones that are the same. It's easier to think of adding two negative numbers. That's a negative 109, and two positive numbers, that's a positive 77. And then we can just line them up and do the subtraction, right? The negative number plus the positive number, we're going to subtract 109 minus 77 is 32, and then the bigger one again was negative, so negative 32, and that's the answer. So that's how you deal with negatives. Now let's take a second example. I want to show you dealing with negatives when we have some grouping symbols. So in this case, I've got some parentheses and some brackets. And that can get a little bit tricky. Let's see, let's move this back down a little bit so we can do some distributive property here. Okay, so the first thing is that a negative or minus negative, just like subtracting is the same as adding the opposite. Well, subtracting is the same as adding the opposite when you have the number is negative. So here, subtracting negative 16 is the same as adding the opposite of negative 16, which is 16. Okay. And let's do this. We'll just say 2 plus negative 6. Okay. Then, when we have this negative sign that is next to the grouping symbol, and there's more than one thing inside the grouping symbol, we can distribute the negative. Now, we don't have to do this. Like, I could have just done 2 plus 16 and add those together first and then put the negative sign on it. Same thing here. We can distribute the negative sign, or we can just follow the grouping symbol and add those together. So we have a choice. I'll go ahead and do this method, the distributive method. So this is negative 16 plus negative 2 plus negative 16 plus negative 2 plus negative 6 is positive 6. So in the end, we have 4 negatives and 1 positive. So we can add all the negatives together. That's, let's see, negative 32, 34, 36. So that's negative 36 plus 6, and that's negative 30. So that's one way to do this. Again, we could have gone in red and done the order of operations kind of thing. So 2 plus 16 is 18, and so we would have negative 16 minus 18, and then 2 plus negative 6 is negative 4, so minus negative 4, which is plus 4, and then moving on from there. So we can do the order of operations, but sometimes it's really, actually a lot of times it's helpful to think about how we would distribute a negative. Okay, moving on. One last problem. I wanted to show you one with variables in them, because a little bit of distributive property here when we have to use it is always good. So we have 4 times the quantity 3 minus y, 2 times the quantity 1 minus y. So that's going to be 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times negative y is negative 4y. And 2 times 1 is 2. And 2 times negative y is negative 2y. And again, I'm going to think about that those minus signs as just a plus a negative number. So 12 plus negative 4y plus 2 plus negative 2y. And then I'll use a commutative property to swap those two, and the associative property to change the order in which I add these. So associative property to add these two together and these two together. So we get 14 plus negative 6y. And then the simplest way to write the answer is 14, not plus, minus 6y. It's really superfluous to say plus a negative number. It's better to say just minus, but I show that to you because it's helpful mentally to think of a minus sign as plus a negative number. But when we're writing it out, and especially when we're writing in simplified form, we'll drop the plus sign and we'll just have minus instead of plus negative. All right, well, hopefully that's helpful. Thank you very much for watching.